So welcome to part 4 of our Mixed Methods Research and Overview series. I'm Joe Gaugler. I'm a long-term care professor in nursing, as well as Director of Graduate Studies in the Center on Aging here at the University of Minnesota. So for our final module of our overview of mixed methods, I wanted to conclude by thinking about and discussing some of the challenges of mixed methods research. This is derived from Cresswell and colleagues' 2010 publication for the National Institutes of Health called Overview of Best Practices for Mixed Methods Research in the Health Sciences. And also I'm going to conclude with some resources that we found very helpful here at the University of Minnesota when trying to create a community of mixed methods researchers as well. So really, what are some of the challenges that we experience when attempting to conduct mixed methods research? The first, and we talked about this to some extent in part 3, are resources. Resources as they relate to time. Do we have time to actually do a mixed methods study? And certainly when one starts to factor in some of the challenges related to collecting different forms of data, analyzing different forms of data, and then finally blending them, which is imperative in mixed methods research, that can take a significant amount of time. Do you as an investigator or do you as an investigative team have the time to do that? Related to this are people resources. Do you have the right expertise on your team to adequately conduct a mixed methods study? And do the members of the team equally acknowledge the importance of mixed methods research, which can be a risk as well. If someone is very much an adherent of one type of research methodology or even one paradigm versus another, can effective communication and management take place to conduct a mixed method study of the highest rigor? I mean, I think that's another potential challenge that we often have to consider. And then the third is, and related to the first two, are financial resources. Do we have the financial resources to hire transcriptionists, to hire effective data analytic support, to hire the personnel needed to oftentimes conduct what usually are fairly rigorous and fairly complex strands within the overall mixed methods research design, qualitative and or quantitative. These are all, I think, considerable challenges, and there are very few people among us who can say, I am a mixed methods research expert and I can do it all myself, so that'll help make things easier. That oftentimes is not the case. In order to conduct a good mixed methods research study, we often have to build teams of people with different types of expertise and then work and develop procedures and policies to help them work together effectively. So I guess in some respects you can think of mixing in mixed methods research isn't just in terms of the research study itself, it's really in terms of your team. How do you mix in effectively with these various individuals to develop and create and produce a high quality mixed methods research study? So, I mean, I think we've already talked about teamwork and how that is required to really pull off a mixed methods research study and to pull one off effectively. Another challenge really, and this is more related to dissemination, which are in many journals, particularly for those of us who are publishing in more clinical journals, is our page and word limitations. So this makes it really, really complex for adequately reporting a mixed methods research study. If you're submitting a paper that has something like 3,000 to maybe even 4,000 word limit, it is very difficult to adequately describe a qualitative component and a quantitative component sufficiently, and then to blend those things together in a way that really demonstrates the power of a mixed methods study. I think another thing to remember is oftentimes when people are reviewing a mixed methods research study, they more often than that are not as attuned or as expert in mixed methods research, certainly as a methodology. So instead what you might have is somebody who's very comfortable with qualitative methods, maybe someone who's more comfortable with quantitative methods, and they're going to really critique the study based on what they understand and are comfortable with. So the importance of being rigorous and describing your different strands are critical, regardless of what priority you put within your mixed methods study. So that's another challenge to really think about. And again, how do we accomplish this with limited words available in many journals? I mean, one of the strategies I've tried to utilize is, if possible, and this isn't always possible for everyone, but In one case, I had conducted what's called a sequential exploratory design. It started off with a qualitative strand and then is leading into a quantitative strand. The qualitative strand, even though it wasn't given the equal priority in the overall mixed method design, offered and resulted in really robust qualitative findings. So much so I was able to publish a paper off of that in and of itself. So now when I actually proceed to publishing the overall mixed method study, in this case, this mixed method study is developing a new sets of measures, I will refer readers to that original qualitative study if they wish to learn more about the analytic approach in the qualitative study, the methods utilized, etc. I mean, that may be one potential strategy to overcome some of these stringent word limits, and there are many others as well. I think another challenge to consider are sampling issues. What is your unit of analysis? And sometimes in mixed method studies, one method may focus on, say, the individual unit of analysis, a person, and then maybe another method is employed to, say, better analyze or study a context, whether it's a setting, an environment, maybe it's a family, a classroom, whatever that may be. So it's challenging then when you're utilizing these multiple methods across levels of analysis. How do you best blend and incorporate and integrate those two levels of analysis within an overarching mixed methods design? That's oftentimes another challenge as well. I think it can be done effectively, again, if one is clear about the rigor of both of those strands, and then one clearly describes how are you actually integrating these two strands together within, say, a results section or beyond. I mean, I think those are important points to make as well when trying to discuss and describe mixed method studies that operate at multiple levels of analysis. Certainly other potential ways to address this is maybe even considering transforming certain data elements into, say, qual to quant or quant to qual to better blend and analyze multiple multiple levels of the analysis, if appropriate, of course. Then finally, analytic and interpretive issues, how to deal with conflicting results. I mean, a lot of the times it may seem that if one has divergent findings from one strand or another, say the quantitative findings show one thing and the qualitative findings show something else, that this is a problem. But in fact, I mean, if presented effectively, certainly one strand can maybe, number one, identify additional research questions to pursue. Maybe the points of divergence provide some insights into, say, something that was missed, or again, maybe even point ways to reanalyze earlier other strands of data to better address the questions of interest. So one, you always hear these really interesting examples of, say a quantitative strand didn't show a hypothesized relationship for whatever reason. But then one conducts a qualitative follow-up, say focus groups or semi-structured interviews or whatnot, and then those qualitative data inform the investigators that, maybe there are different relationships occurring in the quantitative strand. And if the investigator is lucky and they have the data already available, they can go back and reanalyze that quantitative data to see if, in fact, what they found in the qualitative data bears out in their quantitative findings. I mean, that's one example. Another example could be the qualitative findings. They're identifying, maybe additional questions that then can be best answered, perhaps even in a subsequent study. So those are examples of divergence, but divergence to me that result in important scientific insights. So divergence isn't necessarily a bad thing within the context of a mixed method study. It just has to be presented and described as such in a way that presents a compelling foundation for future inquiry. This, again, is from that very helpful 2010 Cresswell publication, and I would argue if an investigator, when putting together either a proposal for a grant, an extramural funding source, an intramural funding source, maybe even a dissertation, that if these points are addressed within a mixed method study, that you will be in good shape in terms of offering a compelling rationale, offering a rigorous mixed method study. So these are essentially the as of 2010, and I don't believe these have changed much, in terms of the main review criterion for scoring, in this case, National Institute of Health research proposals. But if you look at some of the main criterion of how these proposals are assessed, Let's take significance, for example. Can the problem be best studied through multiple perspectives of mixed methods research? So the nice thing Cresswell did is he and his colleagues took the criterion that National Institute of Health proposals are essentially graded upon, and he is applying questions that the mixed methods researchers should be attempting to answer in their own proposals, perhaps even in their own completed mixed methods studies. And these are all questions that one should really keep in mind when writing up mixed methods studies or writing up a mixed methods proposal. And again, based on my experiences as someone who's reviewed many mixed methods research proposals for different federal agencies, and to a lesser, well, actually to probably a similar extent to manuscripts as well, many individuals who apply mixed methods research study designs to their studies don't necessarily take these considerations into account. So if you do that, I think, again, you'll really be ahead of the curve in terms of the quality of mixed methods research that is currently being disseminated. And again, on the subsequent slide, you can see some of the other key criterion. Approach is usually the criterion that is scored most heavily in National Institute of Health funding proposals, and also in many other agencies as well. And you can see some of the considerations one should be thinking about when planning and then conducting a mixed methods study. For example, the third bullet under approach. Is there a clear description of the full study design, including where integration occurs, using a comprehensive figure or matrix? If you viewed part 3 of this overview series, you saw some good examples of schematics that can help really describe to a reviewer, particularly to a reviewer who's not as familiar with mixed methods research, how is the study being designed and how are the two strands being blended? Again, one of the things I've taken the most out of Cresswell's work have been the use of these schematics, and I think they've been very powerful tools for me anyway in terms of describing the mixed methods research I'm doing to those who maybe aren't as familiar with mixed methods research. If you go down a little bit further, are the methods consistent with established standards of rigor for qualitative and quantitative data collection and analysis? Again, regardless of how you prioritize a strand, the rigor has to be present in both. And any grant reviewer, any manuscript reviewer, perhaps even a dissertation reviewer will likely hold you to those standards. So again, using these questions as a way to guide your design considerations, to guide whether, why, and how you're doing mixed methods research. If you can address all of these points effectively, again, I think you're going to end up with a very strong mixed methods proposal or mixed methods study. So I wanted to conclude this series. I wanted to conclude part 4 of our module here with some resources you may find helpful. We founded the University of Minnesota Mixed Methods Interdisciplinary Graduate Group in 2009, and since then we've accumulated a number of resources for students, staff, and faculty to utilize to help guide them in their own mixed methods research journeys. For example, on this Google Drive, which is publicly available, anybody can access it, we have, I've included a syllabus of a doctoral interdisciplinary seminar I developed on mixed methods research. It's mixed methods research for the applied health, behavioral, and social sciences. And I taught this for several years, and I think was able to craft a syllabus that includes a lot of great resources, particularly for those that are just becoming interested and want to learn more about mixed methods. There's a really nice online seminar, again, that's freely available from Tufts, on qualitative and mixed methods that include, similar to this here, lecture and PowerPoint slides. I highly recommend that as an important resource. Sage Research Methods online, if your institution or if you as an individual have access to this, also provides a number of wonderful lectures and readings on mixed methods. For example, John Cresswell has a number of videos related to mixed methods on Sage Research Methods Hub. Again, I really recommend that as a powerful resource. Again, I think key references to consider here when thinking about challenges of mixed methods design and how to kind of get one over the hump to conducting a strong mixed methods research study or crafting a strong mixed methods research proposal are these two Cresswell readings from 2010 and 2011 as well. Again, I am available if anyone has questions. If there are any mixed methods related questions I can try to answer for you, please don't ever hesitate to contact me at either the email address or phone number provided here.